Like Katie said, I'm Russ Anderson. I've been doing this now for about 8 years. Absolutely enjoy it. Prior to that, served the United States Air Force and retired. CMAS sergeant, worked on electronics, specifically ejection systems for 23 years. So I definitely know how to complete a circuit, know a lot about a power when it comes to, electricity. So the cool thing about this, it pretty much transfers. Electricity is electricity. So we're going to have a good time. We're going to entertain you, and we're going to definitely give you some information that you can use today. So if you have any questions, but between myself, Roger, Mario, and Caitlin, and Ruben, we're going to take good care of you. All right, so let's get moving here. First thing is Assa Abloy. That is who we are. We're the largest manufacturer for security products for openings, period. Okay, so we specialize out of Phoenix, Arizona, HES Securitron, alarm controls, life safety power, Adams, right in Phoenix. So, and then there's some of our sister companies, such as HID, Sargent, Corbin, Russwin, Rixum, Multilock. So there's, there are hundreds and hundreds of solutions available to you. So don't say no to any opportunities without checking with us. You'll be surprised how many innovative products have been created in the last 10 years. So, and that's because the customer's expectations have changed. So we have industrial gate locks, cabinet locks, magnetic locks, access egress accessories such as digital keypads, card readers, aluminum storefront solutions, power transfers, power supplies. So there is a lot out there. So absolutely reach out to us. We are happy to be a resource to you. So please use us. All right. So next thing is we have to talk a little bit about safety, especially when you're talking about power. Okay. You have to be safe when you're dealing with any type of electricity. Doesn't matter if it's 12 or 24 volt, or you're dealing with AC. It's absolutely dangerous. So you want to be safe, as well as being out in the field. You want to social distance. You want to check for falls, exposed wires. All these things are very important. So do that risk mitigation before you go out, so everybody goes home the same way. All right, safe. That's what we're looking for. So since we are talking about power supplies, we really want to quickly tell you about our MagnaCare warranty. And this is especially important when it comes to power supplies. Electricity degrades. It does. It eventually will wear down whatever product you're sending electricity. So, the question is, do you have to go pay for another power supply when it, burns out or something happens to it? Or do you get another one from your local distributor absolutely free? So that's what ours do. Any of our power supplies have their MagnaCare, no questions, lifetime warranty. So that's absolutely huge, as well as a number of other products out there. If you have any questions about warranty, please reach out to us. We are absolutely happy to help. So that warranty is the best. Okay, so let's jump into our class here. First thing, let me just ask a question. You guys populate this in your chat. We see all of these different solutions out there. Now, what is the one thing all of these solutions have in common? Does anybody know? Anybody know what does all of these solutions have in common? They all need power. That's the cool thing about this. They all need power. So it's very important to know and really estimate how much power you're going to need per opening. And that is a big deal. All of these takes different types of, amperage, voltage. So it's important to know what type of power supply you're going to be dealing with. So that's very, very important here. So it just shows you, like, we've got strikes that are 300 milliamps, maglocks of 300 milliamps, 240 for your strikes. I mean, there's all different types of power requirement. So choosing your hardware, doing that site survey, making sure you're code compliant is so important. You can't just arbitrarily just pick a power supply and you really don't know what solution you're going to go with. So that's really important. All of these have some type of power requirement. All right. So you do not want to come up short. Otherwise, you're going to have habitual problems. You think it's a problem with the product. And we get those calls all the time. Hey, your strike's not working. What's going on? And it's not powered appropriately. That is the quickest way to have trouble with your access control system. It doesn't matter how fancy it is or all the cool things and features that it has. If it's not powered appropriately, it is not going to work. So be aware of that. Know what voltage that you need. Now, all of these solutions out there in the field, they're not created equal. Everybody's not 12 or 24 volt. A lot of our products are 12 or 24 volt, but a lot of solutions out there are not. So you need to know which voltage is going to apply. And then choosing the right power supply to go with that voltage. That's very important, okay? So, you know, you really wanna get out there, do that site survey, choose a solution that's gonna work based on what the customer is looking for, and then choose the right power supply, okay? So very important to do it that way. So this is what we're gonna talk about in today's agenda here. A little bit of power, some of the things you need to know before picking power, which is really important. Power supplies, distribution boards, selection of power distribution boards, and then life safety. You know, one of our brand new sister companies that's been brought into the Assa Abloy family. We're going to talk a little bit about them as well. So be aware. You want to make sure you check your local municipality, your local city for code requirements. Okay, so we're going to do a broad scope of power when it, you know, in this particular presentation, but absolutely, you know, consult your local AHG because everybody can have local amendments, local policies that may be a little bit different from different city to municipality. All right. So be aware. That's our disclaimer right there. Okay. So let's take a look at some of the access control systems you're going to be that you're going to see out there. All right. This is a traditional access control system, but you'll see the things that are synonymous with each one of these is it requires power, okay? So this is a traditional one. You have multiple different types of hardware on there. Your card reader, your strike, door position switch, Rex, all these things require power, okay? So it's important to know what your total power requirement is in order to power those particular products. You're creating that circuit, okay? You have your controller, you have your access processors, and everything is ran by your power supply, okay? If that's connected to your access control software system via your network, those types of things. So it's important to know what the power requirement is for each one of these products, what the voltage is, and then taking in other factors such as the size wire you're going to be running. Your voltage drop is another important thing you want to consider when you're looking at your access control system. Again, you cannot just arbitrarily just throw something on the door, run wire to it, and think it's going to work. You're asking for problems, okay? So you may get away with it once or twice, but eventually it's going to catch up. So be aware of that. And then another part of your circuit, your fire relay. Does that opening need to be tied to the fire relay? That's a very important thing, and that's a part of your code compliance. Is it a stairwell? Okay, so depending on where you are, your city, your municipality, you may require fire alarm interface, okay? So definitely want to check those things out here. Some of the other access control systems you're going to see out there, integrated Wigan, fewer and fewer wires are being ran to the door. It's just, you know, a little bit more economic. It's a lot faster. So it's important. The important thing you want to consider, again, still is power. These electric locks require power. Okay, you have your power supply, you have your reader interface, your access controller, you still have to power these systems. So it doesn't matter if you're dealing with the traditional one, or you're dealing with Wigan, or you're going to Wi-Fi, okay? So they all require some type of power. And then again, making sure we are code compliant, okay? So maybe a lot less power is required for this particular system because there's a lot less locks, but again, you want to check your amperage requirement, your wire run, your distance in, your voltage drop as far as your wire is concerned. So be aware of those things. Take in consideration all those external factors, all right? And then we have a small access control, a closed circuit, and there's plenty of places where you can use these, okay? Again, power is an important part of this. You got this closed circuit, you got a DK26, you got to push the exit button with a magnetic lock. Now, a little bit different here. You're going to have power going through your circuit all the time until you open a door, where some of your other access control systems is failed secure, so you're not using power until you actually get ready to open the door. So it's a little bit different. Your amperage requirement may be different because of the constant flow of electricity with this one where it is not. So certain things you want to take in consideration when you're looking at these, but we're going to get more into that. Some good stuff here. All right. And then again, checking that code requirement and making sure if I need to be tied to the fire alarm panel lock with a magnetic lock, typically you may have to deal with that. Just depends on what code requirement you fall up under. All right. So always, always, always check your local code and doing that site survey, checking your code, and then make a good recommendation of the solution here. So let's take a look at some of these, some of the panels that you're going to see out there. You got reader boards, main processors, and the thing that's synonymous with this is it depends on where you're using your power supply. Now, typically, a good rule of thumb is to power these separately. Okay, so you don't have a problem with trying to run everything off of one circuit. So this may have its own power supply to power these reader boards, because if this is not powered appropriately, guess what? It doesn't matter how many times you present that card or you put in that code. If these are not powered appropriately, you may not get the authentication to enter that particular opening. Plus, a lot of these have built in some type of protection. So if there's a surge or over voltage, over amperage, you are protecting these reader boards, these main processors, which these are very, very expensive. So you want to make sure you protect those. Okay. So very important to know when and where to use your particular power supplies. All right. And we also have additional places where you may want to consider power supplies here. So we got some additional reader boards here. Take a look at these, 550 milliamp for each one of these boards, plus the card readers are 200 milliamps, quite a bit of power. So you may have additional power supply for these. And as you can see up here, you got a surge suppressor up front of Dytech here, again, to protect your investment. That is very important to consider, that you don't want the customer upset because something happened, a surge, depending on where you are in the country, a surge or brownout, something like that, any increase in voltage or amperage, and then boom, you're losing thousands of dollars. Okay, so definitely want to make sure you protect that investment and build those steps into your access control system. All right. So we talked a little bit about that. So, but the important thing here, and you'll hear myself and Roger say this all the time: do your site survey, check the local code. And we'll say that at least 3 times in every course. It really doesn't matter what course we're talking about. We're talking about power supplies, but site survey is so important. You want to know what the function of the door, because that does and can dictate the power supply you choose. So say like you want to go with a latch retraction, which is very popular. Some rim exit devices have a large inrush. So we want to make sure we have the right power supply that can handle the inrush that those exit bars need. So be aware of those things, any applicable codes. If you're going with a magnetic lock, you're doing stairwells, all those types of things, you want to make sure that you're adhering to code. Some places require glass fuses. Okay, so you want to check those things. Some of the surrounding areas, do you have access to the ceiling, or where do you want to place the power supplies? All these things are very important to consider, any existing conditions and then any restrictions. So that site survey is so important. And the thing about it is every opening can be different. So it may require different hardware, okay? Different hardware may have different amperage requirements, different voltage requirements. So it's very, very important to make sure you look at each and every opening, okay? All right, good. Everybody's having a good time. So like here's a great example of why that site survey is so important. So panel location, power requirements. You can have different openings on these, okay? Different solutions depending on what the customer is looking for, right? And it could be a different power requirement. Certainly other things you want to consider is, your wire run, your voltage drop. That's going to dictate the type of power supply that you're going to use. The power supply is the last thing you're going to specify when it comes to access control. And guess what? We still got to adhere to code, okay? National Electric Code, NEC, we fall up under that, okay? So it's very important to know that we meet those requirements. We have every right to a dedicated circuit, okay? We don't have to piggyback off of somebody else's stuff. We have every right to have a dedicated circuit. So especially depending on the size of the access control system that's going to be running, it may definitely require, several dedicated circuits. So be aware of that and make sure you're following code. All right. With code being said, very important to make sure you know your local code. ICC Safe, this is absolutely the website. You can put these in to Google, pull this up. You can read this online. NFPA chapter 7 deals with us. So you definitely want to know what code applies. Get smarter on that. We also teach several code classes. So if you haven't taken a code class from us, check our itinerary, our list of classes when we're offering. Make sure you take the opportunity to to go to these code classes and get yourself a little bit familiar. That's one of the knowledge gaps that we find out in the field that me and Roger, as we're talking to people, there is a knowledge gap when it comes to code. And I tell you, everybody should have a basic understanding of it. Okay, so we've got, trying to go forward, there we go. IBC, IFC, NFPA. So know what code's adopted in your local city, municipality, know what year's adopted, okay? That's a very important thing. Any local amendments and written policy that your local AHJ may have. And that is, especially on the East Coast, we see a lot of that. The AHJs do run their local cities like their own little Game of Thrones. This is their city and this is what they want to see. So make sure you have a good relationship and good communication with them. And that way you're not making any mistakes or having to undo any work. And that's not very cool. Okay, so ask questions, always ask questions. If you don't know, just don't arbitrarily throw something up, cross your fingers and hope that it works. Okay, so make sure that we adhere to the right codes here. So let's talk a little bit about power supplies. Very cool thing. It's very underrated as far as access control systems are concerned. It's actually the most important part of access control. If it's not powered appropriately, you are asking for problems, okay? The power supply is the heart of your system. It's very important. And it's, again, the last thing you specified. You come up, you do your site survey, you check for code requirements, then you make a recommendation for the solution for the opening, then you choose your power supply. That is so important to do it in that order. Otherwise, you can have issues, okay? So let's talk about power now, all right? The two different types of power. And I'm gonna ask the question, you guys populate in the chat. Have you heard of linear power and switching power? Do you guys know the difference between linear power and switching power? Has anybody ever explained that to you? I just wanna know, raise your hand if you've heard of linear power. Okay, good. All right, 4 of you, all right. So that's an important thing. You'd be surprised how many people have not heard of linear power versus switching power. And it's very important to know which one, because some specs may require linear power, okay? So it's very important to do that. And there's a cost difference between linear power versus switching power, okay? So let's talk real quick about that, all right? All right, linear power has been around a long time. It is actually the great gas you can give to your access control system, all right? As some of you may know that, we have the bridge rectifier from AC to DC, okay? AC has that wave. The straighter the line electricity, the better it is for your access control system. It lasts longer, it's better for it, it performs better. That's what linear power does, okay? It's a cost associated with that. It's a little bit more expensive. It's the same as, putting that great gas in your car, okay? But, then there's switching power. It's good. It makes the product work, okay? They've both been around a long time. but there's a little less cost associated with switching power. Up to 93, we even got power supplies go up to 90% efficient, okay? So there's just a difference, okay? Switching power may have a little bit of a ripple versus linear has a straight line of electricity. That's the biggest difference without getting too far into the weeds, okay? But if you have more questions with that linear power versus the switching power, absolutely reach out to us. We can give you a little bit more detail information on that, okay? So been around a long time for both of them. Now, power supplies have evolved, but two types of ways you're gonna see them being protected here. You typically will see a fuse or you're gonna see a PTC, okay? Most common is fuses. Fuse has been around a long time. Fast tripping fault, 5 seconds, 200% overload, 4 minutes with 100% overload. It trips, you see the little break in the glass fuse and then you have to replace it, okay? But now you're starting to see PTCs is another option that is available to you on power supplies. The difference between these two is the fuse, you physically have to change out the fuse, but the PTC is all auto resetting. You don't have to basically change anything out. It trips just like a fuse, but you have to take power away from it. You may have to wait a couple minutes for it to kind of reset itself. And then you put power to it, boom, you're able to send power to your access control system. But it doesn't fix whatever caused either one of these to trip. You got to find out what that issue is, but you can you can reset the PTC versus having to change out the fuse. Now, you've got different types. You got 1 amp versus 2 amp. All right. So you always want to, you want to go with the more. You want to go with the more, the 2 amp here. Okay. So let's talk about that. Talk a little bit more about that. But here's another code requirement that's really important. All right. Mix and match products, maintaining UL code compliance. This is very important here. Each one of the circuit boards in our power supply is individually UL 294 listed. Okay, that's important. That means if you have a bad distribution board, you can go to us and get another one put in. You don't have to buy a whole new power supply, and you still maintain a UL 294 certification. Okay, so that's very important. A lot of the competitors, yeah, the can itself as a unit is UL 294 listed, but not the individual pieces and parts. So if something goes wrong with that can, you got to get a whole nother can and put another one in. Where here, you can change out the circuit boards and you still maintain that listing. Now, UL 294 is relatively new, okay? And I get this question all the time. What is UL 294, okay? And it's a fairly new requirement for the access control industry, all right? So this is just a quick overview of let you know what 294 is, and is basically a more stringent certification for electronic components, okay, when it comes to access control. And the cool thing about this, it's fairly new. It got its start in NFPA 101 2000 and 2009, and it gradually went through the evolution. It started with elevator lobby doors, which is pretty unique because it doesn't have that much to do with access control, but it gravitated, 2012, 2015, it wound up in IBC code, and it involves delayed egress, electronic locking. It's been an evolution, okay? So that's really cool to, to know the little history behind UL 294. How you like that one, Roger, right? All right, so let's talk about some of the circuit boards out there, okay? First and foremost, we're gonna break it down for you. You got your power supply. It's typically two different parts that you're gonna see here. You got your power supply part here. Let me get my arrow here. Like here, your power supply supplies the power. You got where your AC goes in right here, your line, your neutral, your ground, and then you got your transformer here that changes your AC to your DC, out your DC here, and it connects to your distribution board, okay? So it's important to know the nomenclature of the pieces and parts that you're looking at here. And this is an important thing, your fire alarm input. This is not a standard on, you have to typically ask for this, and make sure you're ordering it if you do have fire alarm, requirement. Otherwise, you got to go back to your local distributor, depending on who you're going with, get the right power supply with this particular one. So make sure you identify if you need the fire alarm relay, because it's a option you have to order here. So you've got your relay here, you got your jumpers, which is really cool, because depending on the opening or what you got powered, when this is triggered, depending on your jumper position, which we'll show you, you can have the door release, you can have the door remain locked. It all just depends on code compliance and what this opening needs to do, which is really cool. And you can do these individually by each one of these jumpers here. So pretty nifty information there. So let me bring this down. All right. And there's just different options that are available, okay? So AQD1, dual voltage 1 amp power supply. Let me move it up there. That you see here has a built-in fire terminal in this one here. So we try to make it very simple. AQD2, dual voltage 12 or 24 volt, 2 amp, dual voltage 4 amp, dual voltage 6 amp, and then we get into our single voltage, okay? So it just kind of, just depends on what you need as far as your power requirement. We always recommend to have 20% spare, 25% spare to make sure that, you're looking at mitigating any voltage drop, making sure that, if you're going to add something small to the access control system, you don't have to go and get a whole new power supply. So it's all important to always have a little spare. That's what we're trying to say. Have a little bit spare. Works out very well, okay? So let's take a look at another circuit board here. Get down into the weeds a little bit, all right? So this is the AQ main power supply board. It doesn't matter, typically, what the amperage is pretty much a standard here. So you have, like we said, our input here for your AC, but then you got your jumper where you can move from 12 to 24 volts, okay? So that's an important thing to know, that, hey, your power supply has this capability to go from 12 to 24 volts, depending on the hardware that you're going to be installing, okay? Also, there is some, I lost my, there we go, capabilities for monitoring AC, battery failover, your DC voltage here. Just important to know your basic nomenclature of your power supplies so you know what you can and can't do, all right? All right, as well as, making sure what type of voltage that you're gonna get out of your power supply. That's very important, because you can have too much voltage and it causes your product to overheat, those types of things that happens. And we've seen that with other different types of power supplies. So make sure you're within that plus or minus 10% range is very, very important. Know what that is. And that's why reading your literature, ladies and gentlemen, is so important. Read your literature, know what the capability of your solutions are, okay? So like really simple, this is AQD6, dual voltage 6 amp power supply, 12 or 24 volt. It has a dedicated battery charging circuit for your battery backup. A lot of people, they only have one circuit for everything. We have 2 separate circuits, one for the access control system, the other one for the battery backup. That's a huge difference, okay? So very important to read that information, know what you're getting, all right? As well as what's important, okay? What is your output? Your 12 is 12 or 24 volt, your continuous output of 6 amps, and plus it gives you the range that you're gonna fall within, okay? So important things you wanna really take a look at. How about the output ripple, full load, 240 millivolts, all right? That is electric, almost electric noise that you can hear. And that humming sound, that's a big deal, especially for people who are going to be in the same room as that access control system. So very important to pay attention to that kind of thing. All right, here's some other different output boards here. So picking the right board is very important. We do our best to try and make it simple. But again, it goes back to your solution, picking your solution first, okay? So this is a very simple board right here, PDB4FR, 4 output, and you got your fire fuses here with this one here, all right? Very simple for F, your F for your fuses, C for your PTCs, all right? Your R is for your relay, your fire relay. So it keeps it very simple. And then we've got like here, PTCs, fire relay. All right. So you got 8 outputs. Very simple. So we do our best to try and keep it simple. That way, you know, you're making sure you're picking the right distribution board for your solution. But again, if you ever have any questions on that, that's what we're here for, okay? That's what we're here for. Don't pick the wrong solution and then have to jump through hoops to get something that's right. Ask questions. When in doubt, ask, okay? And we're gonna give you some of those resources that you can use to ask those questions. All right, so selection of power distribution boards. Again, like we're saying, making it very simple here. So input 12 or 24 volt, that's what all of these power supplies. What you need to know is, hey, do I want fuses? Do I want PTCs? Do I need a fire relay? Those are your questions that you need to get answered, and it helps you pick that right distribution board, okay? So, and the cool thing about it is it's available in 1 amp or 2 amp. Me and Roger always tell you, hey, go with more. If you can have a 2 amp output, why not have a 2 amp output? Okay. Yeah, these boards require power. Absolutely. You got to distribute power through these. Okay. So 4F, you got your fuse. You can get them in 1 amp, 2 amp, 4C, PTCs, 1 amp, 2 amp, all the way up to the fire triggers. Okay. 1 amp, 2 amp, very easy to, to get that, get that part number down. It's not that difficult at all. All right. But we're here for you if you ever need any questions to that. So let's take a look at the distribution board here. I'll break this down for you real quick. All right. So we got our fire trigger right here, right? We got our jumpers. Okay. And then as you can see, these are your PTCs, and we get LEDs on each one of these. Okay. And then you got an adjustment for each one of these outputs, which is really cool. And you got your 8 channels. You can get, 1 amp or 2 amp. Again, I think there's no cost difference between the 1 amp, 2 amp outputs. So why not have something that can give you more power? Okay. That's the best part about that. 2 amp, that's a no-brainer right there. So take advantage of that. Take advantage of that out there. So we were talking about the jumpers and how individually can be controlled, which is very, very nice solution to be able to have. And based on jumper position, you can turn on or off your output if the fire trigger happens to fire for whatever reason. Okay, so maybe you got an opening or solution where the door needs to remain closed, maybe an IT server room, those types of things needs to remain closed. So you don't want that one swinging freely. Okay, you want stairwells with the fail-safe block. Bam. Okay, I can use that. Or maybe I've got a magnet lock on another opening. I've got an output specifically for that one. So if the fire trigger fires for whatever reason, that door swings freely. Individually, you can configure that based on what state you need that door to be in if the fire trigger happens to fire. Very simple thing, and that's just a little key to be able to do that. So you have power released by fire trigger, power not affected, power applied only upon fire alarm trigger. So a lot of capability there. So that's really, really nice. All right, awesome. So that's some good stuff right there. Okay. So again, distribution board specs. Know what your product can do, okay? Output voltage, 11.4 to 28 volts VDC. Know that you fall within that plus or minus 10% range. That is so important. Not enough voltage is not pushing that amperage to each and every one of those products. You starve your products of amperage, you're going to have problems. Okay, so that's very important to make sure you know what your total power requirement is. Again, available in 1 amp or 2 amps. Okay, so read your literature. Read your literature is so important. Okay, all right. Fuses or PTCs is another availability to you. All right, so let's take a look at a fire trigger relay real quick. All right, so you got your 10 amp coming soon that we're looking at here, 1224 volt, 60 milliamps of power required to power this particular board. It's a very simple connection when it comes to this, okay? Now, be aware, unless you're a fire certified person, we can't, make the connection to the fire alarm panel. So stay away from that unless you've been certified to do it. You can have the wire coming from it, but we cannot connect to it. So be aware of what you can and what you can do up under your license, okay? So very important, very simple board here. If the fire trigger fires, these red lights come on, power stops going out of here. Very simple thing, okay? All right, and then you start getting the more advanced type switchable outputs, fire relay. And the thing is, you can, dictate when you want power, when you don't want power here. Very simple thing. You can electrify the relay. It just depends on your theory as far as access control is concerned. You can do it through the board, or you can do it through the access control panel as well. There's available with fuses or PTCs. Okay, so really nice if you're really getting into those bigger access control systems here. So let's talk about the circuit development here. Very important. Every one of these products that you see here, Maglock, card reader, PIR, the 30-second exit button, have a power requirement, okay? Your HR button, have a power requirement. So you got 950 milliamps, like we were saying, 20% minimum. If you're gonna do spare power for the huge power supply, it's 50%, So you can take a look here, 1,140 milliamps worth of power. So it's important, hey, okay, now I got 1,100 milliamps, so what kind of power supply am I going to need, all right? As well as some of the other things you want to consider, taking a look at your distance, your wire run. It's very different if you're running wire only 50 feet versus 250 feet. Your amperage may be different. So that's why that multimeter is so important. Do your voltage drop calculations. And then know what your distribution board can put out. So if you're dealing with a long wire run, you absolutely want to go with 2 amp. So you're starting off your power, going to get that draw and get those products powered appropriately. Okay, so be aware of what your system is doing, what the requirement for your access control system. Remember, you're building a circuit, choosing your hardware, making sure you check a look at your switches. Are they smart? Are they common? If they're common, they don't need power. If they're smart, they need power. So you can forget, a smart switch on a multiple door and mess up your whole system if it's not taken into consideration. Make sure you do your wire runs. Know what gauge wire you're dealing with. 18 gauge is very different from 20 gauge. We're going to recommend 18 gauge, or we even see 22 gauge out there. So your voltage drop may be significant when you start seeing those smaller wires, okay? So definitely want to check that, and also check your code on what the requirement is, all right? So first thing is, you want to know what your power requirement is. You got your solution pick, you did your site survey, you did your code requirement, okay? So you want to know, what's my output's going to be? Do I need, 4 outputs, 8 outputs? Do I need glass? Do I want PTCs? Am I going with a 1 amp or 2 amp? So we got that. And then we're going to determine what our power requirement is. All right. Again, 20%, 25% spare, depending on your wire run, is what you want to look at. Do I need dual voltage or do I need a single voltage? All right, so know what your power requirement is. That is so huge. It really can impact the customer's experience as well as your return service calls. All right, so there you go. There's your website there. We'll populate that in our, after this is all over with, you'll get that website as well, okay? So it's very simple to choose the right power supply. Based on your distribution boards, how many items are we going to be powering? What's our amperage? What's our power? Okay, any additional distribution boards you're going to need. And then you just combine the numbers here. Like you see at the bottom, AQD dual voltage, 6 amp power supply, 8F fuse, 8R fire relay. Okay, so really simple thing to be doing. They actually use 2 of the boards here. Okay, so just combine them up. Again, if you have any questions on any of that type of thing, that's what we're here for, all right? Okay, so let's talk a little bit about life safety power. That's just a brand new solution to us. They joined the Assa Abloy family. It's a very unique product, and it has a lot of capabilities, and we're going to talk about the differences of these here. So again, it's based on power, based on your distribution boards, okay? And we're going to talk a little bit about that, about each one of these distribution boards. And if you have any questions on AQL, we can absolutely help you out. I really like this solution, this product. Again, it's about innovation, and that's what this power supply is. It is an innovative product to meet new customer demand, all right? So we got an AQL4, an AQL6. We've got all different types of power supplies, but the part I really want to concentrate on is the modules here. And there's a big difference between what the previous power supplies that you saw versus the AQL series modules here, like the B100, the D8, the DAP, the R8, and the NL4, the NetLinks power module here. So let's take a look at that, see how it's put together. And I'm gonna tell you a little bit about each one of these here. So you've got, basic power supplies you see here. Let me get my cursor here. You got your power supply. You got, looks like your B100, and then your distribution board here. The function is different, okay? The function is different, the capability is different, and I'm gonna talk to you a little bit about that. Let me get to the right board here, okay? The NetLinks NL4 gives you a lot of capability. Unlike you saw on the AQD power supplies, they're able to communicate with your access control software system, okay? So the best part about this, it gives you a status of what's going on with the access control system, your power supply. So if you've got a failure in your battery, it gives you an email or a text. You can take a look at that. You don't have to go to each individual building and physically check your power supplies. That's the best part about this particular one, the NL4, okay? It gives you that communication ability to see what's going on with your access. You imagine going to a large campus, say such as a university, and having to check the power supplies in each and every one of those buildings when you can easily look at it from a computer. It's a huge time saver, and it gives you up-to-date information on your power supply. So let's talk a little bit about each one of these particular modules here. This is a slide I was trying to get to, all right? You got your power, all right, your AQL4, 4 amp, 6 amp, 10 amp, 12 volt, 10 amp, 24 volt. Now here's the difference here, is like your B100 voltage module. What that does is gives you the ability to have 12 or 24 volt. That's amazing. You can have 12 or 24 volt coming out of the same power supply. Where you may have a car reader that's 12 volt, you can send power to it, and then you may have a lock that's 24 volt. You can absolutely send it out of that same power supply. That is a great capability, being able to do that. You've had your blue and green and LEDs indicated to tell you what voltage is coming out of that particular power supply. And then you have your power distribution modules. So, and it's set up on a bus system. So you can have it where you can have certain voltage coming out of one, other voltage coming out of the other. You have relay modules. And again, that NL4 NetLink module is a huge capability. You can monitor up to two, right from there, 2 AQL power supplies, the status, including battery testing, with this right from your NL4. That's a huge capability. The ability to have 12 and 24 volt coming out of your power supply is huge, because most places it's one or the other. That's it, one or the other. So that is a great capability. Now be aware, and I want to point this out, the AQL is not compatible with the AQD or the AQS. We don't want you trying to mix and match, these power supplies. This is specifically for the life safety power. You cannot put a B100 on an AQD or an AQS power supply, okay? So be aware of that. A lot of capability, same great warranty, as a matter of fact, same great warranty that you get from the AQL, just a little bit more capability, Okay, so we've got power supplies no matter where you are in this industry. If you're doing small access control systems all the way up to the larger multiple facility access control systems. So just depends on where you're at and where you want to go. Okay, so here, 2 common configurations when it comes to access control. Here's one without network capability, just straight power. You can do your V100 with your D8P and run straight power, or you see it up here with the net links with the blue light up at the top right of the corner here, where you can communicate with up to 2 power supplies. Have your dual voltage, 12 or 24 volts, your D8, and then you see plenty of room for battery backup. Okay, so really, really cool. So if you ever have any question when it comes to, do I need the AQL or do I need the AQD or the AQS, you let us know and we can absolutely direct you to the right power supply. We want to make sure you're getting exactly what you want and what the customer wants. All right. So let's do our power distribution checklist. Okay, as we're getting close to the end of this here. First thing is circuit development. Make sure we adhere for, hardware, our locks, our switches. Make sure we write those down. That's why that site survey is so important. We're not missing anything, okay? Make sure the circuit is correct and complete. So we want to research amperage draw. On the literature, you'll find amperage and voltage, as well as on the product itself. You'll see a sticker that tells you what the amperage requirement is and what the voltage is. So you want to write that down, have a nice little sheet per door, what your amperage requirement is, because it can change from opening to opening. Okay, that is so important. All right, do your math, know what the circuit draws. Know, especially if there's an interrupt requirement, all these things are very important to consider. Determine your output needed. Do I need a fire relay? Am I working with the stairwell? Am I dealing with the magnetic lock? What does the code require? Okay, so these are important things to consider. And then select the correct distribution board. And okay, so very important to do that. If you need, we got, like we said, multiple different types of distribution board. If it's a small access control system, maybe you only need 4 channels, but you may need 8, just depends. Make sure you got the right amperage requirement. Again, go with that 2 amp. Always go with that 2 amp. Okay. And again, always, always, always ask questions. Ask questions if it's unclear. And that's with any part of the solution, from hardware to switches to power supplies. Okay. We're going to ask you for some information. How's that, how, the function of the opening, those types of things to really drill down on the information we need in order to give you the most correct answer. That's what we want to do. Give you the most correct answer. And here's some of those solutions or resources that are available to you. Okay. If you ever out in the field or you're just in the office and you're just got your brain's locked up on what to do. Here's one of them right here. The Assa Abloy customer support app. Okay. This is a great resource. Download this to your phone. You can put this iPhone, iPad, Droid, it doesn't matter. This is a great resource. If you don't have this on your phone, you really want to do this now, okay? And it gives you a lot of capability. You can call us, you can live chat with us, and here's the best part, you can video stream. If you happen to be at the opening and you just don't know, we'll say, okay, hit the stream video. You're like, what? Hit the stream video. So now our tech support, our people right here in Phoenix, and that's important. We are here in Phoenix, right? And you turn on your camera and we can see your opening. If you're having a problem, we can see the lock. We can see the door. Okay, so that's a very important aspect. Again, it helps us help you. That's what we're about. And it's free. It doesn't cost you a thing. All right. So if you got to delete Candy Crush or Pokemon, right? Create that space on your phone and download this app. You're going to love it. I still don't think anybody has anything like this in our industry. So if you're dealing with Glass Solution, HES, Maycar, there's a button for each one. These tell you when the tech support's open, and our time is very, very wide. So, it'll tell you when we're open. So it works out very, very well. So take advantage of that resource. We also have wiring diagrams that are available to you. We have the best customer service in the industry, okay? Work on something for 10 minutes. If you don't know, don't throw that strike. Don't push that power supply down the hallway. Use us, 1-800-MAGLOCK. You can email us. You can use the app. You can call us directly. We're more than happy to help, okay? So if anybody has any questions, now is the time to populate it in the chat. Here's our information, okay? Again, we hope you had a good time. Hope you found this information of value, something that you can use today